And I'm back. Sorry for leaving you guys on a cliffhanger, but if you watched the previous episode, then you know right about now is when Makoto and Rei are about to go on their date, and Rei just found out that Makoto wants to go see a Yakuza gang movie, and he was just like, oh no, head in my hands, kind of thing. And now they've just watched the movie. 2 hours later, Makoto joyously shouted in the middle of the shopping district, without a care in the world for all the people watching. I didn't want to bring her to the cafe to drink tea because her boisterousness would be a nuisance to the other customers, but she clearly didn't care a jot about that. Every so often she would get overwhelmed by her enthusiasm that she would stop to pound on the street lights as she walked by them. I was worried that she would hurt her hands at first, but when she started to put cracks in the steel poles, I began to worry more about damaging public property. Has steel always been that soft?
仁義なき戦いの方が世間受けはいいと思うし、昔ながらの義理人情もいいと思うけど、あの悲劇性と葛藤劇は他の映画にはない味だと思うんだ。
Yeah. The movie was actually surprisingly good, so I had to agree with her. Though, there were some parts where the jargon flew right over my head.
すごかった。中井さんの名台詞。任侠道か。そんなもんは俺にはね。俺はただのケチな人殺しなんだ。もうよかった。
Yeah, that was pretty awesome. I mechanically nodded in agreement to everything she said since I was still recuperating from the stressful situation. That movie theater she took me to was something else. The front entrance was guarded by men who appeared to live in the opposite of an upstanding life. When we were about to go in, they stared at both of us with eyes that said, "What the heck are you two rats doing around here?" But when they realized who Makoto was, the path in front of us opened up like Moses parting the Red Sea. We were immediately shown to the best seats in the house and given soda and popcorn with bottomless refills. When the movie reached its climax, all of the men in the building were holding back tears, and after the last fade out, they all left in stoic silence. All of these things were quite a new experience to me, and now I felt like a balloon caught in the windstorm.
私は何を。
Makoto had been deliriously excited for a long time, but she suddenly became aware of how many people were staring at her. Welcome back!
ごめんなさい。なんかそばにいるレイ君まで恥ずかしいことになってた。
Nah, it's no problem. Since you enjoyed the movie that much, it makes me feel glad I invited you out. Even if I had gotten overwhelmed, I was still telling Makoto the truth.
ありがとう。あれ。
Makoto smiled nervously.
変だな、私。なんでこんなに恥ずかしいのに、にやけちゃうんだろう。
Well, you had fun, right? That's what a date should be.
そうだね。
This time Makoto's mouth curved up into a genuine happy smile. I'd never seen a girl so happy before in my life. Regardless of what movie it was like, it really moved me to know that I could make a girl this happy. I instinctively wanted to embrace her right then and there, but I restrained myself. Suddenly Makoto staggered with no discernible reason. What's wrong?
いや、ついレイ君に抱きつきそうになっちゃって。いかんいかん。今日のレイ君は私に付き合ってくれてるだけなんだから。
Makoto mumbled, reproaching herself under her breath. My eyes popped open, and I froze. What a disappointing thing that was. Wait, if I go back in time... I pulled out my pocket watch on reflex, but I quickly reconsidered it and put it away. That wouldn't have been fair to use it. And Makoto would have been disillusioned if I really did hug her right then and there. Anyway, isn't all that hollering making you kinda thirsty? I tried to act as my normal self.
そうだね。お茶でも飲みに行こうか。
I'll go anywhere at this point if the air conditioning inside. As Makoto left, I surveyed the surroundings. There were plenty of shops around, but I wasn't sure which place would be best, considering the mood we were in. I had the same problem when I came here with Masaki. It wouldn't be right to just go in for fast food for this kind of occasion. Incidentally, the day culminated with a humiliated Masaki running out of the pet shop, and we went home soon after that. Want to stop for a sweet somewhere? Alright then. We both continued walking together looking for a place to eat, and then Makoto suddenly shouted a strange exclamation and bolted to a store we happened to be passing by. What the? My mouth agape, I watched Makoto run over to the store and then proceed to embrace a gigantic stuffed bunny that had been placed on the counter. When she realized I was watching, she instantly recoiled while her face turned red. Hmm.
今のは謎の力で足がよろめいて危ないどうしようって時にこのぬいぐるみが目についてこれに抱きついたらクッションになって安全だからという思いがうさちゃんという一言に凝縮されて
Yeesh. Enough with the long-winded explanation already. How impulsive can you get? Given how she'd clung to it with such desperation, my comment shattered her serious facade. Makoto started crying pathetically as she held out onto the stuffed animal like she couldn't bear to let go of it. So it's not just real rabbits, you love stuffed ones too. You must be full of stuffed animals. At my comment, Makoto started sobbing even more. How could someone be so adorable? Makoto and the stuffed rabbit were a perfect match for each other, so I pointed at it and asked, "You want me to buy that for you?" Makoto shook her head with unusual haste. Well, I didn't end up paying for the movie tickets, and it'd be a good memento of our first date. It couldn't be that expensive. 20,000 yen? My casual glance at the price tag gave me one heck of a case of the sticker shock. I thought it would be 5,000 yen at most. She was so elated, squeezing the stuffed animal tightly, still not wanting to let it go. I thought it over while watching her. I actually had the money to buy it. I'd bought plenty of cash along in case we needed to get a hotel or something. My wallet was practically bursting with it, and I certainly wasn't someone who needed to worry about money very much anyway. But still, I felt really conflicted because I didn't want to just buy her a gift with ill-gotten gains from lottery tickets. I wanted to buy it with money I'd earned myself. And it was wanting to make a memento of our first date above all that made me want to use my own money. Isn't that weird? Why am I overthinking it like this? I just wanted to use the pocket watch to make my daily life more interesting and get a girlfriend, didn't I? I'm such a moron. But I wasn't at all bothered by that feeling anymore. 20,000 yen, was it? Since my allowance is no larger than a normal student's, that would shear a large sum of my New Year's money that I could possibly be comfortable with. More than I could possibly be comfortable with. No, I'm gonna buy it after all. When I changed my mind, it was Makoto's turn to be astonished. Crazy? How? Oh yeah, I guess I did say that. I totally forgot until now. That's all water under the bridge now. I still want to buy it. Come on. I'm not enough of an a-hole to buy it and give it to someone other than you. No, it isn't. Why were we arguing about something like this? I couldn't help but get a little miffed. If you like it so much that you want to hug it and never let it go, then you should be happy. Makoto was reluctant for the same reason that I hesitated earlier. I was only reasonable. Alright. Here, let me put it this way. I gathered up my courage and said with utmost seriousness, if you won't let me buy it for you, you have to give me a kiss instead. Naturally, Makoto was confused after that. Then just let me buy it already. Makoto let out a pathetic wail, but she was still looking back and forth between me and the stuffed animal. Then S decided. I didn't want to wait for her to calm down and instantly refuse, so I went to the store and paid the clerk for it. It took me less than a minute to buy it and come back outside, of course. It took me less than a minute to buy it and come back outside. Of course, Makoto was still there. Was frozen there in the same spot where I left her. Man never goes back on his word. Hope you cherish it. After what just happened in front of her, Makoto could only stare at me with a blank expression. But man, my wallet is hurting now. Guess I'll have to scrimp and save for a bit. I had a bit of a feeling somewhere in my head that I was just being a show-up, but it wasn't all that bad a feeling. Suddenly Makoto closed her eyes and let a bit of a mischievous sigh. I was a little confused for a moment until she suddenly kissed the stuffed animal's face, then shoved it into my own face. Makoto gave me a sincere expression of gratitude from the other side of the massive stuffed animal blocking my sight. The big stuffed animal was completely covering my face, but I felt a slight bit of moisture on it from the lips where Makoto kissed it. Then she pulled it away. Makoto, embarrassed about what she had just did, hugged the stuffed animal and showed me a great big smile. Well, if you go on a date with someone you fancy, and you're thinking like, man, I'm having so much fun, being with them really makes me happy, well, I think that's when you should seriously consider being in a relationship with that person. I remembered the words that had come out of my mouth, and I still thought they were every bit as truthful as now. I wanted to find a girlfriend who could make me happy, and whom I could make happy as well. But right now, at this point in time, I didn't quite have that feeling just yet. I felt more like I had just met, for the very first time, the real girl named Makoto Janochi. Hello. Thus time advances. Now then, it had been over 2 weeks since all the commotion with Shuji and Mew. The month was July, and the peak of summer's heat had arrived. I had learned how to be more proactive, and I got to know several girls who were all tied together in a peculiar way, but ultimately my situation wasn't changing. In all my years of being alive thus far, I've been a virgin without a girlfriend. Taking the next step forward would require courage. After one utterly boring day at school, the first choice I had to make appeared before me. As soon as class ended, I felt my phone, which had been in silent mode, vibrate in my pocket. I had received a text message from Michiru, who was asking me if I wanted to go spend time with her and Misaki. I didn't have much else to do after school, so I was about to respond positively to her offer when Didi came skipping over to me. What's up? From behind the cheerful sunflower Didi, Makoto peeked out slightly, looking a bit flustered. Oh. Given the timing of these conflicting requests, I had to think about it for a brief moment. Ordinarily, I might have told these two that Michiro and Masaki had just invited me out as well. Maybe the five of us could have gone out for karaoke or something. However, even fleeting choices like this can determine one's fate. Choice. The dilemma of selecting one outcome while forbearing another. A decision. No matter how friendly I was with these girls, I knew from experience that nothing would happen unless I made a move. Plus, I had been thinking that before summer break arrived, I would confess my feelings to one particular person I had my heart set on. I mean, what the heck, it's summer. Therefore, I made my decision to... with Michiru and Masaki. Alright. Wait, did I just pick the wrong one? No! That's... What? I'm confused. I'll pick with the mouse cursor this time. Go with Michiro and Masaki. What the heck? I wanted to go with Michiro and Masaki, and I swear it was lit up when I pressed enter. Sorry, I already have plans. I held up my smartphone so they could see. Maybe we can hang out some other time? I said my goodbyes to those two. But anyway, there's other fish in the ocean. So it's those two, huh? It's a shame I had to turn the others down, though I was lucky to even have the ability to make such a choice to begin with. I have two other princesses to attend to after all. I typed my response to Michiru's text. I'll be right there, bringing a poisoned apple with me. As Michiru took my hand, she asked that question of me. Well, I just figured a poisoned apple would be a necessity for you. The two first years I came to meet in the hallway each gave reactions akin to polar opposites. By the way, where's Mew? Is she avoiding me? Hope you're right. I accompanied the two princesses to their shoe lockers, and then we regrouped outside the school. Masaki answered if she was used to dealing with Michiro. Honestly, it's easier to hang out with Michiro because our options are more limited. Karaoke boxes, arcades, and bookstores. Michiro isn't able to enjoy any of those places. Rather, Michiro prefers beaches and other places like with nature, since there's such a rich variety of sounds and smells for her to experience. Masaki, thanks for coming with Michiro. I patted her on the head. You're being a good friend to Michiro here, so I'm trying to say thanks. Your ears and intuition don't seem sharp enough, though. Masaki sighed. There was a lingering tension in the air. Wondering what it could have been for a moment, I soon realized. Now that I think about it, I've known you two were friends, but I haven't seen you hanging out together like this before. That said, I've seen both of you individually hanging out with Mew. I don't really get that kind of vibe from you. Are you stuttering? You studying at a cram school or something? Masaki pursed her lips and turned away. I guess it would be rude to pry. But nonetheless, I noticed that Michiro had been holding Masaki's hand rather than mine ever since I left them at the shoe lockers. It was kind of a pleasant feeling to see those two lovely ladies holding hands. So I figured it was best if I didn't tease Misaki any further and kept quiet for a bit. We casually strolled through the neighborhood around the school area.
今日もいい天気ね。それは暑いからわかるでしょうけど。肌がピリッとしますね。でも風があるので涼しいです。花もたくさん咲いてる。雨が降らないとちょっと元気ないかも。あ、猫がいた。黒猫。近くですか？遠く。もう見えなくなっちゃった。前を横切られなくてよかったわね。DD さんから聞きましたが、イギリスでは場所によって黒猫が目の前を横切るのは幸運の証なんだそうですよ。日本と逆なんだ。
As Masaki described her surroundings, Michiro listened with fascination. For someone with impaired sight, it is certainly a welcome way of having fun. Masaki really is good at taking care of others. Would it have been better if I hadn't come? I muttered that under my breath, but Masaki evidently heard it. Come on. I'm not that jealous of a brother.
むしろ兄様はもっと性格と道徳心をかなぐり捨てて私を求めてください。
はい。
失礼しました。かなぐり捨ててなんて下品な言葉遣いでしたね。そういう問題じゃないでしょ。ですね。でも兄様も美咲さんがいれば自分はいらないなんて気にしなくていいですよ。兄様がいるだけで私の世界は輝いて見えますから。
Love is blind.
それは以前と同じネタですね。今回はさながら恋は先行手榴弾。
That's too cryptic.
うわ、話には聞いてたけど、みちるって先輩本人にも本当にそういうこと言ってるんだ。
Masaki's eyes popped upon hearing Michiro pouring out her feelings for me. Now that you've heard it, it makes you want to slap some sense into her, right?
びっくりした。
It was a lighthearted conversation up until that point, when Masaki's face hardened.
先輩もみちるも実の兄弟なのよね。血がつながっていない義理の関係とかじゃなくて。
Of course.
私が言うことじゃないんでしょうけど、もうちょっと距離を置いたらどうなの？美咲さん、あなた兄様にどこまで気があるのですか？
Huh? Misaki and I were both dumbfounded about the sudden shift in the conversation. Misaki turned to face Michiru, still in confusion.
先輩に気があるとか何のことよ。わかりやすく訂正いたしましょう。どれだけ本気で兄様に好意を抱いているんですか？私がこの先輩を好きかってこと？ええ、距離を置けなどと言われてしまったので良い機会ですしお聞きしておこうかと。
What kind of crap timing is that?
好きなわけないでしょ。なんで私がよりにもよって沢渡の御曹司を気にしなきゃいけないのよ。そりゃあ先輩は顔は人並みだけど話してると面白いしちょっとドキドキしちゃうし予想外でワクワクもするけど、それに安藤と沢渡なら嫌がらも文句ないしちょっと考えちゃうし、でもそんなことで人の好き嫌いって考えちゃいけないのよ。それとこれとは話が別でしょ。あれ、私先輩のことけなしてる？そんなつもりはないのよ。別に嫌いじゃないし、ただちょっとあれ
Masaki kept yelling, but halfway through she lost her train of thought.
あ、思い出した。とにかく私は先輩のことなんて嫌いじゃないんだからね。ビシッ
Like you remembered.
予想以上にわかりやすい。
We shared mutual astonishment at her outburst. Well, I had fun hanging out with you too, Masaki. I'm not teasing you this time, I really meant that. so I thought I should say so. Masaki froze up, and her cheeks turned red. This is a trick I learned from Miu. If you state your feelings out loud clearly, it's hugely effective, even if embarrassing.
ちょっと兄様、愛する妹の前で何を良い空気を醸し出しているのですか?
You brought it up first, didn't you? You're in no position to complain.
男らしいお言葉。
Michiru narrowed her eyes, showed me a passionate, sadistic grin.
最近、兄様の周囲が盛っていて、私もムラムラ。いえ、イライラとしていて、踏み込みすぎたかもしれませんね。
You're the confusing one here. Now that Didi is living with us, and I've become more proactive in my love life, it seems Michiru's fuse has been lit too. The bomb at the end of the fuse will probably destroy the entire universe.
二人とも盛り上がってるところでなんだけど、何の話をしてたんだっけ?
Don't worry about it.
甘いものが食べたいわ。私も喉が渇いたので、クリームソーダが飲みたいです。
And I'm the one paying for those, aren't I? Jeez. I couldn't tell if Masaki understood my problem or not. Cake before flowers, sweets to the sweet. Young maidens are nothing if not loyal to their appetites, in either sense. Well, at least I'm enjoying getting dragged along with their whims. It is the springtime of youth, after all. We stopped into a quiet air-conditioned cafe and talked until evening, then parted ways with Masaki at the station. After that, the two of us walked home. You're sure you don't want to take the monorail? Michiru had already told me she wanted to walk home, but I just wanted to make sure. You walked a lot today, so you're probably pretty tired.
大丈夫ですよ。
Rather in the glow of a setting sun, Michiru quietly smiled. Bathed in the glow of a setting sun, Michiru quietly smiled.
もう少し今日という楽しかった日を長く感じていたいのです。
Well, just let me know if you get tired. As I seem to keep saying.
心配しすぎですよ。でも、おんぶしてくださるのでしたら甘えたいです。
Walk.
意地悪な兄様。
Michiru giggled. Holding my little sister by the hand, we took our time walking back home. Every so often I heard the sound of Michiru's parasol hitting the ground as she waved it in front of her. This is kind of nostalgic.
何がですか?
When you were a kid, you used to practice walking with a cane all day until sunset.
そうですね。
Looking at you now, I don't really want to believe it, but back then you were so upset about losing your sight.
今の私を信じたくないではなく、信じられないですよね。
Sorry, but I meant what I said. What I really wanted to ask you was, how did things turn out this way?
でも、そうですね。
Michiru stopped walking and started spinning around, playing with her parasol and
最
smiling.
初は苦しかったです。兄様に辛く当たってしまったこともありましたね。
That's because you'd always accidentally hit me with your cane.
傷が残っていたりしませんよね。
Don't worry about it. Even if I did add some of them, I'd consider them badges of honor.
兄様に傷を残したい。
Hey, I was just reminiscing my happy memories with you until 5 seconds ago. Quit cramping my style.
何をおっしゃいます。
Michiru squeezed my hand a little
そ
harder.
んな子供だった私たちも、これほど恋愛を意識する年頃になってしまったんですね。という流れではありませんか。で、兄様は私と美咲さんのどちらを傷物にしたいのですか？もういっそ 3P でもいいんじゃないですか？
God dang, woman. My sister was adorable yet infuriating as ever. Michiru understood that I was finally getting serious about finding a girlfriend. She especially understood how the leading candidates were Misaki and herself. I just need a little more time to give you an answer.
わかりました。
Michiru giggled and nodded.
でも、私が我慢できなくなる前にはお願いしますね。だから昼間のことは勘違いしちゃダメなんだからね。
Alright, alright. There. Sent. I found myself lying in bed texting Misaki again.
気のない返事だと悲しいかも。あ、かもよ。
She's really overthinking things here. Mish, how am I supposed to respond to stuff like this? I had no experience in love, so I was
ご主
stuck.
人様、いいですか？
I heard Didi's voice from the hallway. Perfect timing. Yeah, just a sec. I sent Masaki one last text. Just got a visitor, so I'll text you again later. Night. Dozo!
お邪魔します。
Didi entered the room, clad in her maid
今日
uniform.
もお仕事が終わりましたので、ちょっとご主人様とトークしに来ました。
Good work?
いえいえ、これもメイドのゲームですから。
Didi seemed pretty happy as a maid, since all the work kept her occupied. She flopped down on the floor in front of
ご
me.
主人様は何をしてたんですか？
Nothing, just texting.
フレンドの石田くんですか？
I thought about lying to her, but my smartphone received the text at precisely that moment.
ちょうどいいから私もお風呂に入るわ。あ、想像しちゃダメだからね。でも私のことを夢に見ちゃうのは許してあげる。
An absolutely bonkers text, mind you, but Masaki's name was displayed clearly on the display as the
あ
sender.
あ、美咲ちゃんでしたか。
Yeah.
もしかして放課後の先にあったお約束というのは美咲ちゃんでしたか？
Yeah, her and Michiru.
うん。
Didi turned her head from one side to the other and asked another
ご
question.
主人様は小さい子に興味がありますか？
Hey, sounds really awful when you word it like that.
ソーリー、年下の子が好きですか？
In contrast to her joking words, her expression was very serious. That's right. Given the circumstances, I needed to be clear with Didi about this fiancé stuff. I can't marry you, Didi.
そうですか。では、言い名付けはキャンセルしましょう。
Well, that was quick.
仕方ないじゃないですか。もともとグランパたちがお酒を飲みながらした冗談のプロミスですからね。
Didi smiled instantly and stood up. What's wrong?
部屋に戻ります。
Already?
これでも、私も年頃のガウンなんですよ。
Didi was still smiling. I had a feeling that her smile would disappear the second she left the room. Good night, Didi. I wished her good night so she could get back to her
お
room.
やすみなさい、レイ君。
Didi quietly left the room. Was that the first time she actually called me by my name? I lay down on the bed again and heaved a deep sigh. My heart felt like a dagger had pierced it, but it was all right. It was the same kind of pain I felt over Mew.
人間の心の動きを考えれば、なかなか残酷だ。
So you were here. I propped myself up to look at Crow, who had been floating in the room from somewhere.
騒がしくなるようなら、小言を言いに出てこようと思ったのだがな。
She came all the way from the UK to see me. Can't help but feel bad for Didi. As always, talking to Crow made the truth fall from my lips almost without
距
realizing
離
it.
は関係なかろう。それに、DD も最初から覚悟はしていたはずだ。
I guess so.
だが、人はそれでも悲しむものか。
I guess so.
時間に縛られた存在は、ままならぬものよな。
There probably wasn't any deeper meaning behind Crow's words, but somehow I had a feeling her words contained the slightest hint of wistfulness even if it was probably just my imagination. Even if I could turn back time further and choose another girl to go out with, there could only ever be just one first love for me. And the hour of reckoning, to decide who that first love would be, was at hand. This again? The next day after school, I tilted my head to one side as I gazed at my phone in my hand. I've been hanging out with Masaki a lot lately, but one day her constant text messages suddenly stopped. Honestly, that felt like a relief for a guy like me, who doesn't normally text that much, but it's usually right around this time. I looked up at the clock in an empty classroom, seeing that it really was the usual time. Normally she would text me when she went to cram school or for her lessons. Masaki would text me about every little thing she did, so today's radio silence had me a little concerned. Just like that, my plans for today were decided. It's time to play detective. Yo! Walking down the hall past the first year classrooms, I saw Mio for the first time in quite a while. Are you headed home? Yeah? It was inevitable that the conversation would turn awkward like this. It wasn't that she was uncomfortable with the situation, rather it seemed she was comfortable enough that she couldn't calm down. Actually, I'm playing detective. Mio giggled as if she were remembering back to when we pretended to be lovers. Anyway, it's not about Michiru. Have you seen Masaki? Mio cocked her head to one side. Did you think it was weird too? I'm a little concerned, so I wanted to look in the classroom. Evidently Mio didn't know where Masaki was either. If you're curious about it too, then why don't you search with me? You have other plans? Best of luck then. Mio smiled politely, gave me a little bow, and then left. Now then, my amateur detective gambit had hit a bit of a snag since I'd now exhausted my leads. This wasn't a matter that could be solved by turning back time either. As I was leaping about, I got a text. It was from Mio. She was relaying the anecdote to me that Masaki's shoes were still in her shoe locker. She'd be a much better detective than me. A socially awkward, chest-anxious, grade-skipping genius girl. Maybe next time I should leave her in a cottage in the mountains during a storm, somewhere in the middle out of nowhere that the police would take forever to get to. Reevaluating my plan, I continued to look for Masaki. I should leave no stone unturned, like a proper detective. At the very least, I know Masaki was still in the building. Just to be sure, I went to the first floor and checked Masaki's shoe locker myself. After that, I went right up to the rooftop. No one. Well, I wasn't expecting anyone to be there anyway. I walked up and down the hallway, searching each floor from end to end until... Huh? In this one, otherwise unremarkable hallway, something didn't seem right. After school ended, they would turn off the air conditioning and open the windows so various types of noises could be heard throughout the building. I heard people talking in the classrooms, athletes shouting outside on the field, and instruments being played in the music clubs. I suppose the sensitivity to sound I'd picked up on was ominous by way of Michiru, but Something caught my attention. Placing trust in my instincts, I tuned my ears more intensely, continuing to search for that something. It was an unexpected thing, or rather an unexpected sound. Mixed in with the sound of the woodwinds being played, I could sense the faintest whisper of a lone violin happening across an empty, disused classroom. I discovered the individual playing that instrument was Masaki. I stilled my breathing and peeked at her through the door's window. The first thought to cross my mind was, she's beautiful. Masaki, the ever-boisterous girl, was staring hazily at her written score. Each drop of her bow across the violin strings extracted the toneful notes from music from them. No wonder she wasn't answering my texts. Her phone was turned off. Besides, she was so deep and focused, she probably wouldn't even have been able to hear her phone going off anyway. So Masaki plays the violin. She's pretty good. I unthinkingly said that out loud. With my family being who they are, my parents would take me to concerts a few times as a kid, and I'd heard a fair bit of classical music that way. I was by no means an expert on the genre, but I could tell that while Masaki wasn't a professional violinist by any means, she wasn't an amateur either. Simply put, Masaki hadn't just taken up the violin today, let alone yesterday. So what do I do now? Masaki had never mentioned this before, and even her best friend Miu didn't know about it. So she must be practicing in secret. And then? Suddenly Masaki's gaze looked onto me. Did she notice me? Her performance concluded. Masaki said nothing, but it was plain to see what she was thinking. "Oh crap," was written all over her face. I waved hello at her, and she scrambled to put her violin and score away. As she was doing that, I opened the door to the room. "You weren't texting me like usual, so I came looking for you." As I spoke, I glanced around the classroom. It was definitely in a state of disuse. Still hardly any sound leaked out of here. It must have been used before the people to practice or record music. In any case, the violin's quite an elegant hobby you have. I'm impressed. If you're that good, then you don't need to hide it. I wanted to hear more of it. Man, how beautiful that was. That is how beautiful you were, Masaki. Masaki froze up, but I couldn't tell whether it was because I pushed her too hard or if she had given up on hiding it. She then mumbled another question. Huh? It was pretty good. I complimented her, but Masaki seemed to slump with disappointment. Hey, I wasn't flattering you or anything, you know. Could you try to become a pro at this? She surprised me again. When I asked that question, she half-heartedly shrugged her shoulders. I had to admire her dedication, but her face looked grim. Well, in all honesty, she probably wasn't good enough to be a professional. When it comes to an instrument like the violin, talent and experience make a big difference. There are children younger than Masaki who have already won championship-level contests. So until you can puff out your chest to be proud of yourself, then. No, it's nothing. I wanted to make a joke about how her chest was puffed out enough already, but that was definitely too facetious. Let's try that again. So, until you can puff your chest out and be proud of yourself, then you'd keep your violin playing in secret from Miu and Michiru? Don't groan like that. I don't want you to hate me, so I won't breathe a word of this to anyone. I just ended up feeling like the subject of a really bad joke instead.
自業自得じゃない。
I had to agree.
じゃあ約束。
Masaki extended her pinky finger with a serious look in her eyes. What?
だから約束しなさい。
Sure. I wrapped my own pinky finger around
嘘
Masaki's.
ついたら針千本飲ますからね。
Crossed my heart.
指切った。
There was no singing involved, but it still felt like a childish way of making a
そ
promise.
れにしてもどうして針千本なのかしら。飲ませるならフグとかの方が怖いと思うんだけど。
A finger probably wouldn't blind you, though.
辞書なんてどうでもいいからちゃんと秘密よ。二人だけの。
Right. A secret between us and no one else. Sounds pretty cool.
あとたまには演奏を聞きに来てもいいからね。
You will? Given Masaki's way of talking, she pretty much just implored me to come and listen to her play.
先輩は目の届くところに置いておかないと気になるし、誰かに注目されてる方が練習になるのよ。
Is that so? At that instant, I found myself remembering something I had forgotten up until then. That reminds me, I think Machuda said something a lot like that too.
みちるもバイオリンなんて演奏するの？
Back when she was a little kid, her parents taught her to play the piano and violin a little bit. Even when she lost her sight, she could have kept on learning, but before I realized it, she just stopped.
そんな話今まで一度も聞いたことないんだけど。
Her talent was unparalleled, but she completely lost her motivation. If I listened to her, then she would do her best. But if I wasn't around, then she'd get bored and stop practicing.
もしかしてすごい演奏だった？
I wasn't really interested in classical music back then, but if my memory serves well, then yeah, I think she really was good, like you put it.
この天才バイオリニストのお嬢様。
Masaki dizzily shook her head.
ほんと沢渡りって嫌になるわ。
While I doubt it had anything to do with that conversation, later that night Michiru came to my room in her pajamas.
本日も兄様と床を共にできる喜びに感謝いたします。
I never said we were sleeping together. She did smell pretty nice from being fresh out of the bath, but even if she kowtowed to me, if I said no, I meant no. Honestly, I'm surprised you didn't just come crawling in here without asking like usual.
それは自我承諾でよろしいということでしょうか。
Come on, stop distorting what I say with your wishful thinking.
本日はお話があってまいりましたので。
Here we go again. Somehow I have a bad feeling about
そ
this.
ろそろ私と兄様の関係をはっきりさせたいと思いまして。
We're clearly siblings.
では、美咲さんと仲良くされているのはどこまで本気なのですか？
That question was one of stark honesty. I'm not sure if I could call it friendliness.
匂いがするんですよ。
Michiro pointed that out right away. Her sense of smell, beyond the definition of more intuition, was refined enough that she really could distinguish Misaki's scent on me. Haha! Now what do I say? I had been conscious to keep my accidentally overhearing Misaki's violin performance under wraps, but Michiro still figured out I had spent time with her today as well. It was obvious that she would have begun to suspect how friendly I was towards
ごめんなさい。
Misaki.
私か美咲さんかはっきりさせてください。気がないのに優しくされると私も我慢できません。
Michiro was deadly serious in her interrogation. I knew why. Because I'm a complete dummy. Maybe this is the right time. Putting aside whether or not I think of Michiro as a woman, if I made Michiro worry like this, I'm clearly in the wrong. I had been playing too nice with her up until now. Just as I had been clear with my former fiancée Didi, I had to be clear with Michiru, my one and only sister. I like Masaki. As expected, Michiru didn't tease me about it, instead choosing to quietly bow in response. Sorry. I nearly apologized to Michiru, but it felt cowardly to apologize for something like that, so I kept my mouth shut. Yeah? Do not finish that sentence! You're not really that shocked to hear that I like Masaki, are you? The rich girl in front of me clicked her tongue in protest. You were a bit too late, Michiru, in more ways than one. That was not a compliment. That new mannerism of hers was pretty cute. No, thank you. I was planning to man up and tell her how I feel myself, so cut me some slack here. Given the timing of that sigh of hers, I had to wonder what the meaning of it was. But she just looked at me with a knowing grin. When I woke up the next morning, I felt like I hadn't gotten enough sleep. Edie Michiru had given me encouragement, so I decided to tell Masaki how I felt about her today, hence why I was feeling nervous. Even I can get nervous! I scratched my head and sat up in bed. I had a hunch that Masaki probably liked me too, but of course I couldn't help but imagine things turning sour. Well, best to get it over with. I was still in a daze, my hand reaching out for my smartphone reflexively without thinking. Checking the time and disabling the Do Not Disturb mode, I saw notifications of new texts having been received. 3 new messages. So I'm getting them at this hour too, am I? I wasn't surprised at this point though. I got them every day, like clockwork, and they were becoming part of my daily routine. That was the first one. Now then, what's the second one say? And finally, number 3. She's pretty lively in the wee small hours. Given the content of those messages, I guess that Masaki usually woke up early in the morning. It was a pain to respond, but having a girl who'd text me at that hour made me happy all the same. I cheerfully typed out a response. Morning, Masaki. Just woke up. I'd have replied right away if I weren't asleep, so don't get sad just because your favorite boy toy isn't around, okay? That's it. Alright. I need to be on top of my game today. I had to keep myself together, so I wouldn't do anything embarrassing in front of Masaki. I wanted to come off like a cool, reliable upperclassman. The school day passed uneventfully, and once it was over, it was time for me to make good on my decision from this morning. I was so nervous all day that I couldn't focus in class, but at least the teacher didn't call on me. My feelings compelled me to leave the classroom as soon as the last class let out. However, I didn't head toward the empty classroom when I figured Masaki would be. I decided to take a detour and walk around the hallways in order to calm my nerves. I'm older than Masaki, and she's a grade below me. We get along like Laurel and Hardy. That kind of relationship wasn't bad in itself, but I still yearn for something deeper than that. My heart is pounding. My anxiety from this morning had returned and reached its apex. Hope I don't stutter anything. found myself rubbing my cheek to try and calm down, but I found the butterflies in my stomach kind of enjoyable.
何よ先輩、本当にバイオリンを聴きに来たのね。遅かったじゃない。
Taking a deep breath and opening the door, Masaki greeted me with her usual belligerent attitude. Despite her harsh words, her cheeks were red, and the slightest hint of a smile played on her lips. If I'm intruding, I could leave.
邪魔だなんて言ってないでしょ。むしろ先輩が来るまでドキドキしながら待っててあげたんだからね。
Glad to hear it. Could have guessed it. For someone with such a tsundere disposition, Masaki really does go overboard with the tsun.
とにかくすぐに練習するから静かにしてるのよ。
Yes, ma'am.
返事が素直すぎてなんか気持ち悪いわね。先輩って意味もなくいたずらしそうだし。
I shook my head vigorously in denial. I definitely wouldn't get in her way, since she practices so diligently. But if she wasn't diligently practicing, you bet I would. Masaki quietly arranged everything on her music stand as she prepared to start practicing, stealing glances at me all the while.
なんか本当に黙ったままでいられるとちょっと寂しくないかしら。
Is it okay for me to talk?
そうね。先輩がどうしてもって言うなら準備してる時くらい私と楽しくおしゃべりしてもいいのよ。
I thought it would be more interesting if I stayed quiet.
いつもみたいに無駄に話しなさい。
Some dumb crap, huh? I had decided to confess my feelings to her after her performance, but no other topic of conversation for the time being came to mind. Was there anything to talk about? Oh, I know. Why exactly did you take up the violin?
どうして？
I mean, it'd be one thing if your parents made you take lessons, but I wouldn't have guessed that you'd enjoyed it enough to not tell anyone else about it, let alone practice in secret.
そうね。好きよ。
Masaki quietly smiled, running her fingers along the case of her violin. Her smile immediately seized my heart in a way that no other smile had ever done. I loved it. To coin a phrase.
もちろん好きって以外にも理由はあるけど。
Like, it's a refined thing to enjoy?
まあそうね。
Masaki stuck her tongue out and gave me a cheeky smile, but that smile quickly disappeared as she heaved a heavy sigh. What's the matter?
好きなのよ。バイオリンが。だからこれだけは譲れないってくらいには上手くなりたいの。
Like I said yesterday, you're pretty skilled already.
一番になりたいのよ。私は一番星になりたいの。
Masaki suddenly raised her voice. Did you come down with something weird? Or was she just getting worked up again? What do you mean, brighter than any other?
そのままよ。私は星になるの。
A shooting star?
流れちゃダメでしょ。
Hey, maybe you could call yourself the Scarlet Shooting Star or something. You'd sound like a really cool action hero.
バイオリン持って我慢してどうするのよ。
I saw an action movie once where a guitarist fired rockets out of his guitar case. What's wrong with that?
いつの間にか我慢の方がメインになってる。
Masaki stamped her foot in the usual way. Yeah, that's the stuff. Masaki had tears in the corners of her eyes as she pointed her finger at me.
そうじゃなくて、誰にでも誇れるものを手に入れたいのよ。私は。
Something you can be proud of, you say?
どうせ先輩には私の器用貧乏で万年2位とか3位、何事でもトップを取れない辛さがわからないんだわ。
Masaki leaned on her violin case as she complained. She made for an almost comical sight, but her eyes were very serious. Oh, I got it. Just like Miu, Masaki is passionate about winning any sort of contest like that. Must be nice. I couldn't help but admire that aspect of her.
調子狂うわ。肩の力は抜けたけど。
Then, having finished her preparations, Masaki pulled out her violin and took to a playing stance. She began to speak in tones. The atmosphere in the room became incredibly still, as if all that excitement a minute ago hadn't happened. I naturally directed my undivided attention toward Masaki's performance. the ambiance captivating me. I forgot about everything else, and it felt like the most natural thing in the world to quietly listen to only her violin. Soon I realized she was playing a piece that I'd heard before. It wasn't the same song that I had heard her practicing before, but it was a piece I'd heard before. The name of it escaped me, though. I'm completely green about classical music, but maybe she picked out a famous piece that she wanted to play just for me. Or maybe I'm delusional for thinking that. Well, I'd be flattered if she really did choose this piece for me. I accidentally voiced my thoughts out loud. After the words had left my mouth, I felt more self-conscious, because I was in love with her and wanted to tell her how I felt. As I sat there, images of myself confessing to Masaki played out in my head. What if she liked me too, and was just waiting for me to confess? Yeah, right. I was on the verge of chickening out, so maybe I was trying to console myself with wishful thinking. Masaki suddenly stopped playing and looked at me with a calm gaze. Huh? Did I do something weird? I felt guilty for making her stop her beautiful performance like that. Masaki cocked her head to the side as well. Really? I teased her a little bit before she started, but I tried not to bother her during her performance, so I was surprised when she put her arms down and stopped playing. Bored? It's not like I have anything else to do. There was no confidence in her voice. One might say she sounded very uncertain about something. I scratched my cheek. Well, I can't deny that I've never been all that interested in classical music. But I like your playing. Or rather, I like it because you're the one playing it, so I wasn't bored. In fact, I really enjoyed it. I showed her a big smile as the color rapidly flushed to her face. Then, she was back to her usual cheerful self. This seemed to be Masaki's flaw. She was so casually discouraged when things didn't go her way, and then able to regain her fighting spirit with just a few kind words. With a serious expression, Masaki held up her violin once again. But she didn't start playing again right away. Hey! Was that called for? It's not just because I'm curious about your playing. I came because I wanted to see you. Whatever you say. I'd intended to be pretty straightforward with her today, but since I was always teasing her, she didn't believe me. Which meant, now was the time. I wanted Masaki to know how I felt. I realized that my hand was unconsciously reaching for the pocket watch even before I began to speak. After all, just in case something went awry, I could undo it. I restrained my own impulses and took a deep breath. Masaki, is it alright if I tell you something serious? I like you, Masaki. Please go out with me. There was quite a long delay before Masaki first reacted. Please don't make me say it again. I was so embarrassed I felt like I was losing my mind. My cheeks were burning up. There was no way I wasn't blushing at that moment. Despite the rapid stream of words coming out of her mouth, she took the time to carefully put her violin away. Then,
いきなりだったから驚いたのよ。
she was still terribly flustered as she came over to me, pointing her finger right in my face. Then I could say it a little more slowly.
そういういきなりじゃなくて、準備、心の準備。
Oh. Sorry about that.
悪くないのよ。
She stomped her feet as usual, but with the way her skirt was flaring up, if she didn't stop, she just might give me an inappropriate sight.
もう少し冷静になって。私も落ち着いて。
Is that a no?
ダメでもないわよ。でもなくて。ほんと、ちょっと待ってよ。いきなりすぎて、なんか頭が。まあ、先輩の気持ちは伝わってきたけど、本気で言ってくれたのもわかるし、私も先輩のこと嫌いじゃないっていうか、好きな方だけど。
So that means... Could it really be?
待って。
Masaki shoved a five-finger salute into my face, putting a damper on my rising hopes.
好きって言ってくれてすごく嬉しかったの。生まれて初めて告白だし、先輩のこと私もだけど、今は付き合えないの。
Okay. Okay. Huh? What? Good. Was that a no? All the blood rushed to my head from embarrassment, and I seriously felt like I was about to faint.
だから違うのよ。焦らないで。
Huh? But Masaki was clearly frustrated, and I wasn't thinking straight either. My head is a mess right now.
その今は無理ってことなの。今じゃなかったら。でもなくて、コンクールがあるのよ。
Contest? My head was about to boil over when it suddenly quenched by a word I hadn't expected to hear. Masaki looked like she had just remembered something important too. The tense atmosphere finally abated.
もうすぐバイオリンのコンクールがあるの。この学校で。
Huh? Here?
そうよ。ここの講堂は結構設備がしっかりしてるからよく。で、先輩知らないの？
I didn't know. So the quote-unquote gymnasium they spent a fortune renovating was actually that. I wasn't big on live music, and some of that would probably have been held on the weekend, so I really didn't hear a word of it before.
まあ、それがあるから、今はちょっと他のことに気を取られたくないから、OK できないの。
So that's what it was. If she couldn't go out with me right now, she literally did mean right now. With this newfound knowledge of the predicament Masaki was in, I realized just how poor my timing had been. Sorry, I guess I picked a weird time to confess my feelings for you.
いいの。私こそいきなりで慌てちゃったから。嬉しかったから。
Oh, crap. Masaki's way too cute once she blushes. Of course, this wasn't the first time I'd ever seen her like this before. Yet somehow her cuteness was on an entirely different level now.
今度のコンクールはね、結構自信があってバイオリンに集中したいの。いい結果を残したくて頑張って練習してて、だからね、すっごく自分勝手だし迷惑だろうけど、それが終わるまで返事待ってもらっていい？
Of course. It's not annoying at all. I'll be eagerly awaiting your answer. Oh, and good luck in the contest.
頑張る。
Masaki put her hand on her chest and nodded. I didn't receive a clear answer to my confession. She didn't reciprocate my feelings when I told her that I liked her. She merely accepted them. That alone was enough to make me happy. This confession was completely different from all the times when I practiced confessing to girls, then undid it with a pocket watch. Thank you, Masaki.
何を突然。
I don't know why exactly, but I still wanted to thank you.
そうなの？まあ、どういたしまして。でも言っておくけど、まだ付き合ってるわけじゃないんだからね。調子に乗るんじゃないわよ。
Yeah, I know. We're not going out yet.
何ニヤニヤ笑ってるのよ。
You are too. Masaki jumped up in surprise, and then she turned her back on me to regain her composure. Even that mannerism slayed me. Yeah, I've totally fallen for her. I'm beyond all hope. Though that phrase sounds a little too pessimistic. Anyway, I don't want to get in the way of your practice, so I'll be going home. Oh, okay. She yanked on the sleeve of my jacket with surprising force, shoving me back into my seat. そうでもなくて、人がいると練習になるし、コンクールも観客がたくさんだから、いい結果出したいから。だから先輩には私のそばにいてほしいの。他の人じゃダメなの。先輩じゃないとダメなんだから。Alright. I smiled and pulled Masaki's fingers off my jacket, being careful not to hurt her as I did so. Masaki sounded really sad when I forced her to release her grip on my jacket. I pointed at her violin case in order to reassure her. In that case, you better get practice. Masaki flashed a gleeful, sunflowery smile, and then took her violin back into her hands. She started playing. The end result was surprising. Masaki's performance was actually quite terrible. She definitely had the motivation, but she was constantly looking at me out of the corner of her eye while she was playing, and her concentration was shot. Her overall playing was pretty off-key, and she missed a lot of notes. All those mistakes just put more pressure on her, and in the end, she wasn't able to regain her composure until evening. It was supposed to be a day for us to celebrate, but on the way home Masaki was full of despair. I could see why. I didn't have any words of encouragement for her. The second half of her performance wasn't something that I could compliment even if I tried. Or rather, if I tried to compliment her, it would just sound sarcastic. I was at an impasse. Our relationship had progressed to something where us actually going out was a very distinct possibility, but somehow it didn't feel very satisfying. Masaki held her head in her hands. If she likes me too, then I wish we could do something romantic, like walking home together while holding hands. I recalled how Mio said something like that to me once, but in this situation I hesitated to even hold her hand. Then Masaki stopped walking. Were we going to walk to the monorail station together? Then I'll come with. Her voice was very calm, but her words were forceful enough that I couldn't say anything else. I see. Of course I couldn't force her. Hey, no need to be pedantic, it's not a big deal. So I was. Whatever. I was happy to see she was acting like her usual self again, so I didn't crack a joke at her expense this time. I ought to be worried about you getting home safe on your own, too. You're a girl, after all. Alright. I don't mind talking more after that, but why?
先輩が告白したんだから、今まで以上に私のことを大事にしなくちゃダメなの。
So that's what you meant. We weren't dating just yet, but she still wanted to talk with me to deepen our relationship. Of course! Gladly.
喜ぶの？そんなこと言ったらいっぱいメール送るわよ。
I'm always glad to get messages from you. Why wouldn't I want to talk to the girl that I like?
そうなんだ。それなら、私も。
Masaki's face turned red, and it certainly wasn't just from the evening sunlight. I mean, today was the sort of day where that would happen a lot. For now, things were just fine. The day had its ups and downs, but I was starting to feel comfortable with Masaki again by the end of it. The night came. Just like I promised, I texted Masaki for a while. We didn't talk about anything in particular. Even after I ate dinner and took my bath, we kept texting. Talking late into the night didn't bother me since I was talking to Masaki.
今日の兄様は随分と幸せそうですね。
My tutor was relaxing in my room, as if doing so was as natural as breathing to her. Yeah, I guess so.
帰宅時間がいつもより遅かったようですし、それに帰宅してからずっとメールをしていますよね。
Yeah, it's Masaki. I admitted it right away since I didn't have to worry about Machito reading the embarrassing text messages on my phone. That being said, Masaki and I weren't actually talking about anything substantial. It was just more of our usual
では
banter.
兄様、今夜は一緒に寝ましょうか。
Well then, what's that supposed to mean?
兄様の機嫌が良さそうなので、私のお願いも叶えてくださるかと思いまして。
Hey,
では、お布団に忍び込むのは我慢いたしますが、兄様、美咲さんに告白された結果、どうなったのですか？
should have guessed you'd want to talk about that. I sighed, and then raised my voice so that the person I could sense was eavesdropping in from the hallway could hear too. I bet you'd want to talk about it as well, right, Dee Dee? Her voice on the other side of the door was a perfect giveaway. At least she wasn't hiding in the ceiling or something.
DD さん、入っていらっしゃい。まさか、私の忍術が通用しないとは思わなかったでござる。
Dee Dee entered the room quietly while demonstrating the ever-present inverted ratio between the size of her mouth and the size of her brain.
ではでは失礼します。お話を聞かせていただきましょう。
Sure. Machito sat down on the floor, taking the Saiza position. I did the same as well. Dee Dee followed suit, and her Saiza posture was surprisingly good, better than mine even. Alright, pause. Just so you all know, the Saiza position is when both feet are together, and they're sitting with their knees in front of them, and their butt is resting on their ankles. I'm sure you've seen it before. Well, there's not a whole lot to say anyway. I confessed to Mataki today.
そうですか。
Machida perked up for a moment when I said that. She didn't give any noticeable reaction except for sighing heavily.
実行されるとまだ引っかかりますね。なんだかご主人様がお婿様に行くみたいですね。それはありえませんよ。どちらにしてもハッピーなことですよ。明日は盛大にパーティーをいたしましょう。ごちそうがたくさんです。
No, our relationship hasn't got that far yet.
おっと、焦りすぎちゃいました。ミステイクでした。でもごちそうは食べたいです。焦りすぎということはないと思いますよ。何せ沢渡と安藤の子供が付き合うことになったのですから、まずはお付き合いの祝言だけでも十分ではありませんか。それもそうですね。後々のためにお祝いの練習をいたしましょう。 ごちそうが食べられれば私も嬉しいです。
Isn't Dee Dee just too excited for food and nothing else? But never mind that. That's not it either. I told Misaki how I feel about her, but we're not dating.
はい、そうですか。告白したけどソイでしたか。ご主人様、美味しいものを食べましょう。私の分もちょっとはあげますから元気を出しましょうね。
Dee Dee was worried enough about me to share her food with me, huh? But the real problem arose from the other girl.
ありえません。何様のつもりですか。あの小娘は贅沢者です。兄様の告白を拒絶したのですか。私ならその場で押し倒しますよ。即座に既成事実まで持っていきますとも。わあ、お嬢様がご安心でございます。ディディさん、車の用意を。すぐに美咲さんの家へ向かいますよ。イエスマム、かしこまりました。
Like heck you will! Both of you cool it for a minute.
落ち着けません。
Shut up and listen to me! I bonked Machiro on the head, and she let out an amusing squeal. It's true she didn't agree to go out with me, but I'm not saying she turned me down either.
What?
Misaki has her own reasons for not being able to give me an answer right now. So like I said, we aren't dating, but she didn't reject me. Once the truth finally came out, both of them had no further cause for complaint. Then I thought about what to say next. I wanted to explain the situation, but telling them about Masaki's secret violin practice didn't sit well with me. I couldn't tell them everything, but I still had to give them a convincing reason. Right now, Masaki has something very important she has to do. She needs at least a month to focus on that, so that's why she couldn't give me an answer just yet.
それは兄様と付き合うことよりも大切な用事なのですか。
It's something very important to her. I just want to respect her decision. Given how determined Masaki was to fulfill her dreams, I'd found myself falling for her even more. And I wanted to throw my full support behind her while she gave it her
で
all.
したら仕方ありませんね。お祝いは日を改めてですね。
We'll do that when the time comes. Still, it's not like I'm guaranteed a positive answer from her.
兄様は悪い返事をされるとは思っていないようですが。
Machida really can read me too
ここま
well.
で思われるなんて美咲さんが羨ましいですね。
You're important to me too, Michiru. Just as my sister, though.
今はそれで我慢しておきましょうか。しかし美咲さんの用事というのが気になりますね。
Machida seemed to be satisfied with my response, but I somehow had the feeling that she'd soon get around to grilling Misaki at the first chance she got. I was hopeful that I hadn't betrayed Misaki or Machido's trust, but I couldn't be certain of it. Oh man. I think I better stop right here. It's a good time to stop, good time to stop. It's definitely been over an hour. Let's save it. Oh man, so much has happened. But yeah, I decided to choose Masaki because twin tails are my weakness. What can I say? I don't regret it, so far anyway. She seems like a cool character. I figured she would be. You just gotta get past that whole I hate you, I love you part. Once you get past that, they're usually really cool characters. Anyway, if you made it this far to the end, good job. And I will see you next time. Hopefully, next time, actually, I was going to say hopefully next time we'll be able to finish this game in the next hour, but actually I hope it doesn't end in the next hour. I'd prefer there to be more storyline development between the two before it ends. We'll just have to see.